Alright guys, today we're going to be talking about a very interesting, not spoken about too often group. A female only gang called the 40 Elephants. We're actually going to be leaving New York City and going across the pond to London. Let's travel back to the late 1800s. London's poverty-ridden neighborhoods. Elephant and Castle, Lambeth and Walworth bred a different kind of person. Straight survivors. Had to get it out the mud. Basically, let's mirror the Lower East Side of New York City at this time, and that's London. In the late 1800s, you had a couple organized female pickpocket crews. They were loosely organized and operating mainly in South London. One group stuck out more than the others, and the police actually started to refer to them as the 40 Thieves or 40 Elephants. Elephants because of the street that they came from. And these women were not to be played with. They were excellent when it came to stealing merchandise. During this time, they became very structured and built an underground network. Mothers brought in daughters, aunts brought in nieces, and they really started to even customize their clothing to accommodate their new profession. Custom tailored dresses with hidden pockets, corsets modified to hold that booty, an underground network to move all these stolen goods, and apartments across London to keep the stash safe. They would hit West End department stores and even take trains to other cities throughout England to fence everything they can. Police knew something was going on, but their coordination and the fact that they were women kept them under the radar for a very long time. Now in the early 1910s, a lot of the male gangs started to get into the protection business during what they called the territorial wars. And these women did not negotiate with them as subordinates. They were equals. They demanded respect and got it from their male counterparts. Their ability to steal merchandise across England made them a very valuable asset to a lot of the male gangs, and being partners would be a very good look. Now, the first queen of the 40 Thieves was Alice Diamond. She reigned at the top of this organization from 1915 to 1925, right around the outbreak of World War I. That was a godsend for this group of pickpockets because now these shops are short-staffed and police resources are stretched thin. And Alice Diamond, who was tall and stone-fisted, became the undisputed leader at the age of 20. Under her leadership, they expanded from London to Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, Cardiff, and Paris. They even began raiding country estates and high-end fashion boutiques. They traveled under false identities, posing as aristocrats. They pooled their money together like any organization to be used for bail and sharing the rest of the profit. And they had a very strict code of conduct to mitigate any chances of being caught and bring down the organization. And her authority was absolute. She ruled with an iron fist. She had diamond-studded rings that were basically knives on her knuckles. Anyone got in the way, she was gonna make sure they bled to know her name. But her being so tall and physically imposing, she started to demand attention. And another, more modest, more quiet and shrewd operator named Maggie Hill started to rise right at the end of Alice Diamond's fall. She wanted to expand past just shoplifting. They started to deal with black market trading, fencing stolen goods to nightclub owners, burglaries of wealthy homes during high society parties. They really expanded their operation to encompass more than just taking goods from a department store or boutique. They became a burglary crew, supply chain, and intelligence network, all rolled into one. But while they're doing this, law enforcement and department stores are starting to catch up and smarten up by hiring detectives, more surveillance, criminal record systems became more sophisticated. Now under Maggie, they got about a good 15-year run before things were started to change. And because of World War II, they had to change as well. Luxury stolen goods were a little harder to fence. A lot of the original members were getting a little too old, retired, died, or were even absorbed into wartime labor. So they went to selling rations. But after the war, unfortunately, technology started to really ramp up. CCTV was introduced in some retail environments, obviously making those stores a lot harder to target. Stores hired trained security staff. Police, after decades of investigation, started to understand how they operated and what to look for. And younger women had more employment opportunity, not having to feel like this was their only option. Now in the 60s is where things really start to dissolve for the organization, really fading out. By 1970, the group basically didn't exist. And in the 80s, there were just a couple handful of members that still claimed the gang out of pure pride, but they were all old, elderly, but they were not an active organization, just one in name only. But I still think, one, they had an incredibly long run, and they dealt in crime the way they wanted to. They weren't pushed around, they weren't dominated, they found their niche and controlled it. And I just think it's a fascinating story. They never felt like they had to accept men or be subservient to men. It was a female-only group from the day it started to the day it ended. They got a good 60, 70 years of operation, which is pretty incredible. But yeah, that's just a short history of the 40 Elephants Gang female-only pickpocket organization based out of London.